Remember this clip from this video? So what's the cheapest way to have the arcade experience at home? Well, you buy the peripherals. Yeah, I kinda wanna elaborate on it. I fucking love arcades. It's always a pleasant event going to one. The lights, the claws, the scenery, and most importantly the friends you bring along. And unfortunately I live in America where arcades are practically dead. I want the arcade experience at home, and I don't mean getting MAME and just playing a bunch of ROMs with my keyboard. No, how do I get this?
Baba Booey.
At home. To answer this, I bought various arcade peripherals for various arcade genres, and I want to share my journey and experience with you guys. Any resources, videos, products I bought, or software I mention will be in the description. Disclaimer, I'm not sponsored by anyone. I mean, Jesus Christ, look how many subscribers I have. Anyway, here's the table of contents. Let's start Dash.
Aliens are coming!
The only way to really bring that home is services like Toreba, J-Claw, and Goton. I myself played Toreba for like a month back in 2018, and I really can personally say it's not really worth it. It's not a terrible app, but just the execution isn't that great. There are lags, and there's several quarter hogs out there in the fucking service. And the credits are just really fucking expensive to me. But if you really have a UFO Catcher itch that really needs to be scratched, there's either services like this, or these little shits. Play the Yakuza games. You know, due to the demand by the Family Guy community, companies have made several types of arcade sticks for every platform from dirt cheap to like 300 puyos. I myself bought a Joystick Mini for 22 puyos to play some old school arcade games and sometimes fighting games, and it works in bringing the arcade experience at home, and I do like using it. And I think it's enough for me, because I'm not going to spend hundreds of dollars for a fucking Kwanba just to play Pac-Man like I did in the arcade. It just doesn't make any sense. Look, there's obviously two reasons to buy a controller like this. For simple arcade casual fun, or to lay some serious Hadoukis on your friends. I do have one piece of advice, and it might just be a me thing, but pay attention to whether or not your arcade stick is an X input or D input, or better, does both. Because a lot of new games just accept X input and not D input. Like here's an example. I was trying to play a Pac-Man Championship as well as the Namco Classic Arcade series on Steam, and those programs just simply didn't read my fucking controller. Well, Mr. Driller worked just fine. Like, what the fuck, Namco? Now, to get around this, what I had to do was download a program called Xbox CE, which basically turned all my D inputs into X inputs. While setting this up wasn't hard, and it worked just fine, it still was annoying that I had to go through all this shit just to play fucking Pac-Man. Luckily, if you're trying to play fighting games, it really shouldn't be an issue because those games usually cater to old types of controllers, and the same can be said about emulators. But I guess for official ports, I gotta have an X input. You give me more of a reason to pirate, Namco. Now, what's the difference between these types of inputs? I don't fucking know. I couldn't tell you. As far as I'm aware, X input is from the Xbox, while the D input is something that classic games usually do. However, I believe the PlayStation controller does, but I can't be for certain about that. Don't quote me on that. Overall, you have a wide selection of cheap to really expensive controllers to buy from this section. And even if you don't want to look for that X input or D input, you probably won't have a problem if you're trying to lay some serious Hadoukis or you're just trying to emulate stuff. However, it might be something to look out for just in case. Look, let me explain myself. I saw a couple of fishing games in the wild like once, and I wasn't planning on making this section until I stumbled upon something at the thrift store. I only wanted it for one fishing game. The only fishing game I genuinely like, and the one that I would love to take home with me. Sega Bass Fishing is a special franchise to me. Sega made, in my opinion, a calm but boring sport into an exciting arcade experience with hella style. I don't enjoy fishing despite my several attempts when I was young, but I really enjoyed this game. And a game like this really shows that style can go a long way. The arcade, while extremely hard to find, actually has a steel rope connected to the fishing reel with force feedback to create a haptic experience. If you have the Dreamcast version, I guess get the Sega fishing reel because it rumbles harder than any toy on the market. It's also gyroscopic, so it works well with Virtua Tennis. This looks from... Wait a minute! Lastly, this rod was made for this game. It's actually the only official fishing peripheral for any gaming console. Microsoft will never make one, Sony never make one, fucking Nintendo will never make one. That doesn't count. Now, what about the PC port? So this is what I found at the thrift store. It's the Xbox Striker Rod by Bass Pro Fishing, which works, but the real part doesn't, and that might be because the controller's aged or it's damaged, but maybe one day I'll get it to work. I mean, it's okay. This doesn't feel too bad because the analog trigger is perfect for reeling, and even though these videos have it showing its motion controls, I can't get it to work, but the analog stick works just fine. Should you go and find one of these just to play Sega Bass Fishing? I mean, if you want to, there isn't much of a reason to other than just because. I personally don't care about any other fishing games. And there isn't much information for virtual fishing rods, so honestly, if you come across any fishing controller, chances are it'll probably be cheaper than your mom's raggedy ass shoes. If you do end up buying a fishing reel controller, then please tell me about it in the comments. I would love to read the information and stories you have about it. And overall, despite my love for this controller I just found, really an Xbox controller works just fine. Racing wheels are weird because they're more complex than an arcade stick, and simply put, the architect of the wheel matters to a point. It feels like the scene for racing games are leading towards sim racings, and I really don't like that. See, racing sims feel so soulless to me, and if I want to feel like I'm driving a real car, then I'll go drive a fucking real car. That's not to say that arcade racers are dead. They are plentiful, but may not be compatible with your wheel. There are two main wheels. One with no force feedback, the bungee cord wheel, and ones that do, belt driven or direct driven. Basically, a separate motor creates torque that forces the wheel to have more resistance, and it creates a unique haptic experience that can't be found on any other kind of controller. The ones that don't have force feedback has a bungee cord that keeps the wheel center, and the more you turn left and right, creates more resistance because of the bungee cord's stress. But it's not the same. The force feedback wheels range from 200 puyos to 300 puyos, while the ones that don't end up around 70 to 130 puyos. You can kinda tell what it is just by smacking the wheel around, but I don't think they'll let you do that at Best Buy. Now, after hearing that crash course of racing wheels, you'd think that getting the force feedback would be a better investment. Well, yes, but actually no. Despite me never owning a force feedback wheel that is either belt driven or direct driven, I can at least tell you this. Arcade games actually have force feedback. PC ports of it, or even MAME ROMs of the arcade, probably won't connect to your wheel directly without special software. The force feedback code isn't built for every wheel, so it's not plug and play. Not every game supports all racing wheels' force feedback, or even the wheel itself. Even with sim racers, it takes a lot of setting up with special drivers just to get the bloody thing to work in at least one game. Well, maybe a controller's vibration turns into force feedback. But hell if I know, because I couldn't seem to find a definitive answer for this shit! With PC arcade games, no developer should expect a PC gamer to automatically assume that everyone has a Logitech G29 or whatever the newest wheel available is. Most of the time, average PC gamers just have their keyboard and an X input controller. Even though force feedback is the definition of sex in racing games, I can't safely say that every racing game you own will automatically have it. I thought about getting the Logitech G29, but I'm not an avid racist to justify that kind of purchase. I want to play games like Slipstream, Daytona USA, Wangan Highway, SRB2K, so what wheel did I get for this?
Ooh, what's this?
The Thrustmaster T80, and this wheel was a big fucking mistake. So basically I installed all the drivers and I got it to work on some games. It worked on Dirt Rally, it worked for Drift of the Hill, Car X Drifting Racing Online worked, but I had to invert all the controls so that it would work properly. Fast Beat Loop Racer GT, which is one of my personal favorites, did work. However, there was a lot of dead zones in the racing wheel that I had to turn it like 20 degrees just to get a small turn. And it worked on SRB2K to my surprise, and here's how it worked. Here are the stats. But Jesus Christ, there was so much dead space when driving that it wasn't worth it in the slightest. Despite it working for those games, it didn't work for Horizon Chase, Hotshot Racing, Slipstream, Redout, Crazy Taxi, Formula Retro Racing, and Shenmue. Why does it need to work on Shenmue, you may ask? Well, simply put, it's the only legal way I can think of to play Outrun on PC. Here's a flowchart that basically describes how the wheel worked on the games. As you can see, even if the wheel was red, the turn radius of 270 degrees can make a game a chore to play. And some games allowed me to type how many degrees of rotation my wheel had, and that helped for the most part, but not every game had that option. I think what some games were doing was trying to convert the distance of the analog stick to the racing wheel, which would have made a more precise experience, but for me it just made more dead space. My overall experience with this wheel was just terrible. And one may ask, why the fuck did I get the PS4 version? Well, if you look at the box, it says works on PC, and if it works on PC, then I expect it to work on PC. If only the games read my wheel as X input. Wait, what about Xbox CE? Surely that would work, right? Look, even if Xbox CE did work, I'd still have the problem of too much turning, and I wish I could change that on the fly as well. About a year ago, Vladimir Putin and his kid Ivan Dmitry sponsored and starred in a commercial to reveal the Hori Racing Wheels Pro and Mini, which was compatible for the Switch and PC. I remember seeing these and thinking, I don't need this, I'll just get the Thrustmaster T80, it'll be a better wheel. Since they work on PC, I decided to give it a try, if I could find a good price for it at least, and I was able to find one for the Mini. And Jesus Christ, look at this packaging, God. What the fuck? Who the fuck does this? At least the wheel was in one piece. I guess two if you want to be a dick in the comments. So, I plugged the wheel into my computer and realized that it was going to work on everything I threw at it. You may ask yourself why. Why does this baby toy work better than the Thrustmaster? Well, simply put, Hori was smart. Hori made these controllers be read as an X input controller. It's exactly what I said. It's exactly what I wanted. This wheel was perfect. It was 180 degrees of perfection rotation for SRB2K. It was quintessential. And due to the small size, it was zippy. It was fun. It was quick to turn. It was amazing. So I bought the other one. And that was just as fine. I mean, 270 degrees of rotation didn't make a chore to play on a lot of games, but Hori made a fucking one-up on us. By pressing ZR on a sign for 3 seconds, you can change the turn radius from 270 degrees to 180 degrees. This was mind-blowing. It's as if they read my mind. I really love these wheels. I really do, and I'll probably use these wheels whenever I feel like racing because street racing is so fucking expensive. I mean, look at my tires, man.
I'm sure it's not that noticeable.
Chances are I'll keep using the mini one, more because of the size and portability as well as the small turn radius. Despite my appraisals though, I guarantee you that these will be dog water for fucking sim racings, and and it's pretty obvious. There's no force feedback and it's not 900 degrees of rotation. Overall, the Mario Kart wheels are perfect for small arcade funs and burst without breaking the bank. Overall, fuck you Thrustmaster, hope you go bankrupt. This genre of gaming is so diverse, it's more diverse than my homework folder. I mean, look at this shit, goddamn! What I mean by that, these controllers and gameplays are just so different despite them all being press button at the rhythm or beat. Now obviously the reason it's like this is because these setups would just be too much effort to bring the experience at home that just giving your dollar to play these games is just easier. However, these fan bases, man, they're so thirsty for that arcade experience at home that there are several videos and software available to, and it really shows the creative efforts that people do to bring these at home, whether it's cardboard, paper, or other items. So is there hope for anybody? Well, kinda. No matter what your favorite rhythm game is, you need the basic essentials of a special controller for said game. Usually you have to do it yourself or pay someone else to do it. And most importantly, simulation software or the home port if it exists. Simulation software is basically a fan-made game that mimics the arcade as close as possible software-wise. And 90% of the time it's free unless it's some stupid shit like this. I know piracy is a thing which legally I cannot condone, but the option is there if you can find the software. In high school, my friends at the time, on Fridays, we'd play DDR at the nearby mall. But now that I'm in college and there's no way to play DDR in the arcade, which is why I bought this. This is the L-Tek with no bar. Instead, I use a chair and I use the simulation software Stepmania on PC. Now, I bought this to bring the arcade experience at home, and it does the job.
What the dog doing?
But it only makes me want to go on a long drive just to go play it on a real cabinet. That being said, I still really like it and I think it was a good investment. The only problem is that the dance pad wasn't as sensitive as I wanted it to, so I had to penny mod it. If you want an in-depth guide on playing DDR at home with the arcade experience, Dom ITG has a great guide about various dance pads, and I know one of you guys are going to mention KK Clue's video, which is a good video, but his video isn't about exploring the arcade experience, but the scope of DDR and the way it's played. My friend Davisonte plays a rhythm game, and when he's not making a video, he's probably not playing Sound Voltex. So let's see how he brings the arcade experience at home.
In late 2020, I picked up a Wangan Sound Voltex. I went with this one because at the time, it seemed like the most logical option. The price wasn't terrible, and the con had a pretty favorable reputation. Getting one at the time was a pain though, as I had to wait months for a restock. While the controller was great, I did eventually encounter things I took issue with. This was after about 6 months of play. When I began to play on arcade once a week, I noticed that my timing was always off, leading to a massive amount of nears instead of criticals. I blame this on the fact that, while it's a good con, the Wangan Sound Voltex is not the same as arcade. The buttons are a completely different setup of components than an actual cab. This issue can be fixed by buying actual arcade components to upgrade the controller yourself, with Yuan even having videos showing you how. However, these parts are not cheap, and I can only really recommend buying them if you're dedicated to the game and you're playing on something like, say, 16s or higher. In terms of software for home play, I just stuck with USC. With a site like onichan.wtf, it was super easy to find zip files for songs, as well as skins for the simulator. USC is pretty straightforward to use, so there isn't much that I can say about that. I did not pick eAmusement Cloud though, since I wasn't going to deal with spending money. As for guides, I'm not really too sure. I did a lot of this stuff just kinda on my own. RemiWiki has some useful information, as does onichan.wtf. Any rhythm game Discord will also be a great place to ask any questions.
Alright, thanks for being here. Go check out his channel, but goddamn, he hasn't uploaded a video in a while.
What a fucking...
Despite the diverse nature of rhythm games, it's all the same. A fan base will find a way to bring it home, both software and hardware, and even if the company does make a port of any capacity, chances are the fans did a better job. Now obviously it takes more effort than other arcade genres, but if you really love this kind of gaming, then you have a lot of options in both the DIY and the consumer option. You know, it's crazy to see the efforts people make to bring the arcade at home, whether it be a jerry-rigged or a one-to-one recreation. It takes a lot to bring these experiences at home, and it boils down to just time and money. Regardless, I don't think it'll be a one-to-one arcade experience. I don't mean that hardware-wise. The atmosphere, the socialization, the breaking random people's high score, the claw machines with dog shit quality plushes by Kelly Toys that you just want for some fucking reason, and those intense moments when this is your last credit. Those moments can't really be replicated with home setups. When you bring an arcade home, peripheral or not, they lose some charm and end up as just another game on the shelf. Is it really worth it? Well, that's up for you to decide. But if you ask me, I'll say, FUCK THAT! Look, I knew ahead of time it wouldn't be perfect. My DDR pad isn't arcade quality, but I'm having a good time. My racing wheel isn't arcade perfect, but I'm having a good time. My fishing rod isn't perfect, but I'm having a good time. My arcade stick was okay. Look, it may never be the same, but I'll always enjoy my time with these arcade games, and I know I'm not alone on that. Whether or not you want to invest in arcade peripherals or not, it kind of doesn't matter. Because arcade at home has a beauty within itself. The beauty of being completely personalized to your taste and your feels. It truly is up to you on how you want to play the game.
Do you want to win all the free games?
I'm giving away the fight stick that I had in this video, and more on that in the end later. Now let me babble about shit, alright? But if you do skip it, I'm gonna kick your ass. I would like to thank Davisonte for being here. His channel will be in the link in the description. Secondly, I'd like to clarify that this arcade stick actually works just fine. I just don't have a need for it right now, and I'd rather be playing with a Sega Saturn controller for my fighting games than anything else. Oh yeah, don't expect long videos like this again, at least not for a while. I'm gonna stick to doing some shorter videos for now on, but you know, I'm definitely gonna make long videos like this for certain at some point. Lastly, to enter this giveaway, there'll be a post on Twitter that'll be in the link in the description. What you gotta do is quote tweet this with a video of you liking and commenting this video with this phrase. The cutoff period is January 10th, in which I'll pick out a winner and message them privately. Good luck, and here is an example. Alright, I'm using Catwave as an example, but do this with the video you're currently watching with if you want to do the giveaway. Basically, you go down here, you know, you show the time, just make sure it focuses at least enough to be legible. Then you go, you do the like, and then you have the phrase, and then you enter. Fuck. You have to enter in the comment section, and there you go. That's what you gotta do. Thank you for watching this video till the end, and I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you soon.
The magic conch shell!